And so it's interesting how I got involved with Netflix and got involved with Fastest Car. So this story is pretty interesting. The producers from Fastest Car contacted NASA and asked if NASA, National Autosport Association, they contacted the Southern California region and asked if there was anyone in the southern region of NASA who could help with the TV show. Hey.
T Marc Jones, how's it going?
It's going great. How you doing?
Oh man, doing amazing this Sunday, man. Doing amazing. Thanks again for accepting the invite to be on Car Talk TV with us, man. It's definitely an honor to have you on. Definitely an honor.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I would be outside, but unfortunately, due to the wildfires here in the California Bay Area, we're in an unhealthy air situation, so I'm taking the call from inside. So I wanted to let you know.
No worries at all. No worries at all. Now, as long as we got you on. I'm representing Lamborghini today.
Oh, there you go. Very nice. I like it.
Yeah. I know you'd, the Porsche guy. We definitely gonna get into that. But for the audience who just know you as the Netflix fastest car host, tell us who T Marc Jones is. Take us back to the very beginning of how you got into cars. We talked about it a little bit before. They don't know, but I want you to tell it.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. So ever since I was a little boy, I always loved cars. Just had always been into cars. And then when I was about 6, my father took me to. I grew up in Baltimore, so I'm from the East Coast. Even though I live in California, is my home now. I'm from Baltimore, but so when I was about 6 years old, my father took me to my first car race at Summit Point Raceway in West Virginia. And ever since then, I've been hooked on not just cars, but on racing. And that's kind of my big thing. So while I love cars, I love racing even more. So I'd always been into cars. My favorite brand is Porsche. And since I was a little boy, I just thought the cars were cool. And I saw a movie called Le Mans back in 1971. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but I didn't see it in 71. The movie came out in 71. I saw it sometime after that, but I was a kid when I saw it, but I'm not that old. I didn't see it when it came out. But yeah, and then Porsche was featured in that film quite a bit, and it just, I just loved the brand and the mystique of Porsche, so that's how I became kind of a Porsche enthusiast. But always been into racing, watched races on TV growing up, and just always was in awe of racing. So went off to school, came back to California, and that's when I really started getting into driving and racing myself. I started doing high-performance driving events with the National Autosport Association, also known as NASA. They're a national sanctioning body and host professional races along with amateur races. So I started driving with them, or started doing high performance driving events with them. Started out as a novice, worked my way up to the expert group, and then I'd been running in the expert group for a while, and there was an opportunity for me to make a choice, to basically choose what I wanted to do from. As in terms of my driving career, I could keep just driving in Group 4, which is nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do that. I could have gone into racing, wheel-to-wheel racing, or I could have gone into instructing. And of the 3 areas, I chose to go into instructing, just because not only do I love racing, I love talking about racing. We had a great conversation the other day, so you can attest to that. And I also I felt like I wanted to give something back to the motorsports community, and I felt that I could do that through instructing. And it also helped me become a better driver. So, if you know something well enough to teach it, then you're learning as you're teaching it as well, because part of the learning process is being able to teach something. So I went into instructing back in 2005, and 2008, got my first Instructor of the Year award with NASA, and it's basically outstanding leadership in the area of instruction. That was with NASA. And then I won another award for outstanding leadership in instruction in 2015. So two-time award winner, which is very nice.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And so it's interesting how I got involved with Netflix and got involved with Fastest Car. So this story is pretty interesting. The producers from Fastest Car contacted NASA and asked if NASA, National Auto Sport Association, they contacted the Southern California region and asked if there was anyone in the southern region of NASA who could help with the TV show. And for whatever reasons, they didn't have anyone available or nobody was interested, but that's neither here nor there. So the next call was to NASA Northern California, and they talked to actually the president and owner of NASA. His name is Jerry Kunzman. And Jerry said, sure. I mean, I'll put it out to the instructor body and see if anybody's interested. And he basically sent us a note that said, an email that said, hey, if you're interested, there's a TV show, they could use some help. And I thought, oh, that would be kind of fun. I've never helped out on a TV show. And, you know, when I first saw it, I thought, yeah, I'll probably go and, rearrange cones and do a bunch of stuff off camera. Well, that'll be kind of fun, you know, and say I was part of a TV show. So naturally I said, yes, I'd like to do it. And then I had an opportunity to talk to one of the producers. Her name was Jennifer Madsen Jones, and we're wonderful, wonderful person. We're still friends to this day. And I was talking to her. She said, so tell me a little bit about what you do with NASA. You're an instructor. Well, what does that mean? And I explained, well, it's in-car instruction. It's working with novice and beginner drivers to get them to the intermediate and advanced levels of high-performance driving. And in addition to the driving duties, the one-on-one instruction, I also handle the morning drivers meeting. So when students first arrive for the weekend's activity, the daily activities, Saturday and Sunday activities that comprise the weekend, I'm the first formal person they talk to. So I bring everyone in, explain the way the program will go through the flags, go through the various protocols and situations that might happen out on track and what the students should do. So really I'm the first person that they see, and I set the tone for their experience for that whole weekend. So when I told that to Jennifer, she said, oh, that's great. Well, could you do some of that on camera? I said, oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, if you want me to be on camera, I'll be on camera. So that's kind of how I got to the show. And the show's it's a pretty interesting dynamic, and I can get into it at some point. But that's kind of where it started. It started, I guess, if you said what was the main thing that got you hooked on racing, it was going to races back as a little kid and with my pops back in West Virginia. And that just solidified my love for racing and motorsports. And then if you love motorsports and racing, then you got to love cars by extension. But yeah, that's how it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna get into the fastest car questions and dialogue in just a bit. But just to piggyback on your first dives into motorsports, what was your first vehicle that you ever owned?
The first one I bought for myself?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So the first car I bought for myself was a 1995 Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX. So it's a 2-liter turbo. I want to say 225 horse, 250 pound-feet of torque. It's a 6-speed. It has 6-speed and all-wheel drive. So I just thought. That's why not? I figured the first car I get, I wanted to make it something memorable. And I always like kind of unique cars. And at the time, I was a big fan of all-wheel drive, just for a lot of reasons. I like this goes back to racing. I like the Audi Quattro, and that was all-wheel drive. And they won everything. And then Audi actually ran the Audi 80 and the Audi 90 in IMSA GTU. excuse me, in the IMSA GTO program and won everything until they got outlawed. They also ran in the SCCA Trans Am series, but they had less success there. But so that kind of got me into all-wheel drive, and they didn't make an Audi that I could afford at the time, but I could afford a Mitsubishi. So.
Gotcha. So with the Mitsubishi Eclipse that you had, obviously 200 horsepower was a lot of power back then. Just for an average, regular, street car production. Did you track that car at all? Did you race that car at all? Or was it, the cars down the line that you got into, that you actually got into the motorsports with the vehicles that you owned?
Oh yeah, no, that one I took it out on track. So every car that I've owned, that I bought for myself, has been out on track. That's kind of a thing with me. So if I buy it, I'm gonna put it on the track. So yes, I did HPDE. Let's see, I got all the way up to group. I think I went from the beginner group and then got all the way up to the intermediate group in that car. So group 3 is what the intermediate group is with NASA. So yeah, I ran the car in high performance driving events for probably about 2 seasons.
Okay, so you're talking about these groups. Now, bring me up to speed on the motorsport side, which I'm a novice at. Break down the groups, because you said, you went from group 1 all the way up to group 4. Let me know, as well as the audience know, the breakdown and the difference between the groups.
Okay. Yes. So in the National Auto Sport Association, these are school groups. HPDE stands for High Performance Driver Education. So these groups are set up for people to learn in a safe environment, to learn how to drive, basically learn high performance driving. And group 1 is comprised of novice students, people who've never ever been out on a racetrack before ever. And so that's who that is. Group 1 is novice students. You've never done it before. You've never been in a car on a racetrack, and everything is completely new to you. Group 2, yes, yeah, and that's where everybody starts. If you've never been on it, doesn't matter how much you love cars. If you've never been on a road course, because we have people who come from autocross or drag racing or go-karting who have previous experience, but we still like to have them start out in group 1. So that's what group 1 is, the novice group. Then group 2 is a beginner group. So so typically you start in novice and you might do maybe a weekend event, and so now you have a couple of days of driving under your belt. You still have a lot that you haven't done yet, but group 2 is a good place for you to be, because you're in a beginner group. You're driving with people who are driving at about the same pace. And it's really a difference in the groups. It's the level of experience, but then the speed, just the pace that the cars are going. Now, these aren't races, but as you can probably imagine, the novice and beginner groups drive more slowly than the intermediate and advanced groups. So, so group 2 would be beginner. HPDE 2 would be beginner group. HPDE 1 is novice, and then HPDE 3 is intermediate. So that's where your skills are beginning to progress, and really you're getting to a point where, as a driver, you're becoming too fast to drive in group 2 safely, because one of the big things is speed differentials, and it becomes an unsafe situation when the driver their skills advance to the degree that they're passing, or their just their pace. The other students can no longer match their pace. So that's when we have a student move from group 2 to group 3, which is intermediate group. And then group 4 is advanced, and that's just open passing. I mean, it's basically it depending on the drivers, it could be like a race group. So I mean, people bring race cars out. Well, people can bring race cars out in any group, because you can do high performance driving in a street car, or you can do it in a dedicated race car, as long as a race car has fenders. You can't take an open wheel car out and drive it with cars with fenders. But some people go out and buy like a spec Miata and want to learn how to race it, and they start out in group 1 and work their way up. So so what I was saying was group 4 can be, it's the advanced run group, it's the top run group. It's the highest level that you can reach in a high performance driver education program, and it's typically the fastest group. And you'll have you have instructors driving Group 4, you'll have racers driving Group 4. If I wanted to go and drive a track I've never driven before, I would drive in Group 4. So it's a group set aside for really experienced drivers, and it's a fast group. It's like I say, it's almost like a race group.
Gotcha. I'm gonna just check in and shout out a few people that's in here. Of course,
Sure.
We got Steve Vapors, we got JR, we got Wavy Wenzy, we got Jade's mom. Definitely appreciate a few people checking in here. Now I know you're a Porsche lover. Right?
Yes.
You got the Porsche currently right now. How many Porsches did you own in your lifetime? I remember you saying you like to hold on to them. So talk to me a little bit about your Porsche ownership. I actually watched the movie Le Mans as well.
You did watch it?
Yeah, I got to check it out, and I see exactly what you're saying with the guy that was popping up.
Right, but I mean,
Steve
just
McQueen.
a little bit on that. And one of the reasons I like that movie is because, I mean, in 1971, you didn't see people that looked like us in movies like that. And even though he didn't have a starring role, he popped up. Like he was the thing where he's in the garage he's like. So what we're talking about, everybody, is a movie called Le Mans. It's a great movie. Or it's one of my favorite movies. It's all about racing, but there's a black character in the movie, which was pretty groundbreaking for a movie that was filmed in 1971. What this person was able to do. So that just kind of, with everything that's going on in the world right now, I mean, it's kind of a poignant movie from that perspective. And that's actually, interestingly enough, that's where my love for, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that's where my love for Porsche came from. I saw that movie. I was maybe, again, I didn't see it in 1971 when it came out. I'm not that old, but I was maybe about, 8 when I saw it. So it probably was like 1980. I don't know. I was born in 1968, so I'm old, but I'm not that old. But so that movie got me into just admiring Porsche and liking them. But again, not so much for what they do on the street, even though I think they make beautiful street cars. I love Porsche because they just dominate racing. Every series that they've entered into, they've won it in some capacity. I mean, everything. The only thing they haven't done is they have not won the Indy 500 as a manufacturer. That's the only major race that you can think of that they haven't won. They've won as a manufacturer. They've won Formula One, and then they've won. Their engines have won. They've won races as a manufacturer in Formula One, and then their engines have won races as part of the Tag Wire team in the 80s for 3 years. Those were Porsche-based engines. They've won Paris-Dakar with the 950, with the 959. In fact, his funny story is they entered the 959, and everybody, if you like street cars and you like Porsche, you probably know what a 959 is. So they entered that in the Paris-Dakar race, came in first and second, and they entered a support vehicle, just a car to give support. So you have the cars that are racing, and then you have a car that just drives around and has spare parts in it, But they classified that car. Well, that car came in 6th place. So I mean, they just they just dominate. They've won Le Mans 19 times overall.
Wow.
They've won. They're the only manufacturer to have won the Daytona, the 24 Hours of Daytona. They won with a GT car against prototypes. That happened in 2003 with the Racers Group 996 GT3 RSR. So huge fan of Porsche. You asked me about my first one. So the first Porsche I had was a 1999 996. That's the internal model designation. So it's a 911, but 996 model designation, a Carrera 4. Again, I like the all-wheel drive. It was guards red because red's my favorite color, and 6-speed gearbox because I only drive cars with clutches. That's just my thing. I like to roll my own. I don't like to sit and get. So so that was the first one. I had that car. I ran that car for a while. It was interesting. You asked earlier about how I put cars or my tracking activities with cars. Well, I basically bought that car, had it shipped to me. I bought it I was living in California at the time. I bought it from a place in Ohio because I got a good deal on it. Had the car shipped out to me. I think I got it on like a Wednesday. Drove it up to Portland. I used to play lacrosse back then too, so I drove it up to Portland for a lacrosse tournament, specifically to break it in so that I could come back and put it out on track that following weekend. So that's what I did. Drove it up there, broke the car in, got everything broken in. So I had the car about a week and a half before I did my first track day with it, and ended up running it. Yeah. So, and at that time I was in Group 3, and then I started to get so fast that I got kicked out of Group 3. They were just like, you need to be in Group 4 because you're scaring people in Group 3. You're fine. It's just the speed. That's what I'm saying. It's just, it wasn't like I wasn't reprimanded. It was just you're too fast for this run group.
Right.
So
right.
yeah. So I started running in Group 4 with that car, and ran that car from 1999 to 2008 when it actually blew up on track.
Whew.
Yeah.
Were you in it?
Oh yeah, I was in it. Yeah, I was in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, no, being on fire, I don't recommend it. I mean, I was not personally on fire, so I did not, my skin or nothing like that burned. But yes, the car was fully engulfed. I had to end up driving it for about another minute or so. I mean, I can go into that story, but I ended up driving a car while it was on fire for about a minute until I could get to the fire crew, and then they put the fire out. So,
man, was that scary or what, man?
It was not something I would want to do again. It's funny. There's a picture of me. So okay, well I'll tell the story. So I was up at Thunder Hill Raceway, which is outside Sacramento, and you know, I was an instructor at the time, but I was running, so I had students and everything, but I was driving by myself in Group 4, just kind of doing a shakedown run. The shakedown run is basically anytime you make a modification to the car, you go out and drive it on track to find out, because you made something new, you need to find out how that modification is going to, you know, how it impacts the car, how it plays out, how the car feels, you know, if it works or not. So it's called the shakedown. You're shaking everything down. So I was kind of doing a shakedown run, just kind of, you know, because I'd done some, I changed the tires. I did a bunch of different things on the car. So I'm out there, I'm driving. I'm like, okay, everything seems good. I go into turn 10, which is, it's a left-hander after on the back straight of Thunder Hill in the 3-mile configuration. So it's coming downhill. It's a 4-3 downshift. So you're in 4th gear. I don't know how fast I was going. You know, people always ask, well, how fast do you go? You're really too busy to look at the speedometer on, you know, because, well, the thing is, if you look at the speedometer, you still are going faster. So like, I never know how fast I was going, but it's over 100 miles an hour. You enter that corner, definitely. So because it's a 4-3 downshift. So I went from 4th gear to 3rd gear and just, woof, so all this white smoke come out of the back of the car. And my first thing was, I am not buying a new motor because I just put a new motor in there. So I'm like, I'm not, I literally, like it was yesterday, my first thought was, I'm not buying a new motor, right? So that was in the turn. So I go into turn, I'm turning to turn 10, the motor lets go, there's white smoke everywhere. And then I get to turn 11. So it goes 10 and then 11 like that. So by the time I get to turn 11, I see like arms licking up like this from behind the spoiler.
Wow.
So I'm like, and there's a picture of me. I'm looking in the rear view mirror, and I remember like it was yesterday. I said, "Is that fire?" I'm not buying it. Is that fire? And it was fire. So the motor's in the back of the car. So the whole back end of the car was on fire. Now on a racetrack, you can't just pull over and get out. That creates an extreme dangerous situation. So if you ever watch racing, you see somebody has a problem, they'll continue to drive the car, even like if let's say they like have a flat tire, they don't just get out and walk away. They try to drive it as far as they can because it's not safe to just leave cars everywhere, especially if they're on fire. And then on that particular day, there's a huge windstorm. was like 40 or 50 mile an hour winds. So if I had parked the car on the grass, I would have started a grass fire, which would have probably burned the whole place down. Wow. So yeah, so all this is going through my mind while the back of the car is on fire. And then in that car, the gas tank was in the front because it was all-wheel drive. So trying to balance out, because you had the differential in the front. They also put a gas tank in the front as opposed to in the back. So I knew that the fuel was not where the fire was. I knew the fuel was up front. But, there's fuel lines and there's fuel in the system. So it's not like, there's still fuel all over the car. So the back of the car is on fire and smoke started coming into the, it started walking up the chassis and pouring into the inside of the car. I could still see. So the car is on fire. I'm driving it while the whole back of the car is on fire. I'm leaving turn 10. I'm driving down the back, or leaving turn 11 rather. It's 11 and then 12 and 13. So I'm sorry, it's turn 11, 11A, and then turn 12. So I'm going through turn 12 on the back straight, just like, oh, I hope this thing doesn't blow. I hope this thing doesn't blow. I hope this thing doesn't blow. I got to turn 14, which is a right-hander that leads you back. It's a 14-15 complex that leads you back to the front straight. But there's an access road. So I got to turn 14. I didn't try to turn. I just drove off the access road, and the fire truck was coming out that way. So the fire truck, I almost head-on collision into the fire truck because I was trying to get off the track. So I finally get the car stopped, and the first thing I did was I just took off. I jumped out of the car and just started running. So I ran probably a quarter mile. I was just scared. It was adrenaline.
Right.
And so then so they started putting the fire out. And the thing is, these are my friends. So these are, the safety crew are friends of mine. So the guy's like taking an axe to the car. And he's like, sorry, man, got to get the fire out. And I'm like, well, so he's like throwing stuff, and they finally got the fire out. But so that was how that car ended. So after that, I just had to walk away from it. But yeah, so I don't recommend catching on fire. It's not pleasant.
Yeah. Thank God that you're still here, man.
Yes, thank you.
Super crazy. But to segue into that, I think it was season 2 of Fastest Car.
Yes.
With the Fox body. So yes. It was the McLaren, the Fox body, and I think Tiana's Mustang.
Yes.
Gunning it. And they was giving the McLaren to run for the money.
Oh, yeah.
And the Fox body just lost control.
Right.
How was that? Like, on the set? I mean, I seen the emotions. I seen the reactions. Like, it was so real. I'm sure all the viewers that was watching was like, oh, my God, this is happening. This is crazy. Could you tell us a little bit about, that story? Yeah.
Well, first, so that was, you're talking about Lyle Barrett. Real good dude. He's the one who had that Fox body, the white one, the beer money car. Yep. Real first stand-up guy, real good guy. And I would like to let everybody know that he drove that car until he couldn't drive it anymore. And I'll explain what that means. So basically what happened was he was going, his car was turbocharged. I don't know exactly what caused it to step out, but it stepped out one way, and then what happens is when you correct the car, when a car steps out in one direction and you correct it, you have all that energy that's loaded up, and then it's going to come back the other way. It just has just like a spring effect. So what happened was it came back again, and then you correct it again, and it'll keep oscillating and until you can save it. Well, then it went around again, and he couldn't save it. And then once a car gets to 90 degrees, you can't save it anymore. You're going to spin out. So what he did was it got to a point where he couldn't save it anymore, but he did drive it to a point. He controlled it to a point where he went across the other 4 lanes of racers, basically behind everybody, and basically went off track in a section off the side of the track, which was the best place for him to end up. And I could tell he drove the car there because he missed everybody and he didn't hit anything. So even though car gets, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying he's one heck of a driver to pull that off.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even though a car gets away from you, you got to still, you still drive it until you can't drive it anymore. But no, when that happened, it was kind of interesting. I mean, I've been around a lot of, if you love motorsport, you've been to a lot of races, and I've been to as a spectator, hundreds of races. I mean, you see crashes all the time. I mean, it's just so. The main thing you want to make sure of is that the driver is okay. So what happened was he went out, he went off course, ended up hitting the sign, and then he kind of got out of the car, which we sort of don't recommend that you do, because you get out of the car, you start taking your stuff off. Well, you don't quite know if you're okay or not. So he kind of did that. He just was sort of embarrassed, been out of shape, or just or I wouldn't say embarrassed. I'd say probably a bit in shock, because he had that, it's no secret he had a previous accident at the track. Yeah, and it happens. It can happen to you, and then it can happen to you again. So he kind of came back, and I was like the first one that came up to him, and I was just like, "You okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm all right." I kind of was like, "Okay, just give him some space." And then I don't know if you recall the other gentleman that came up, Mark. That was his dad. So like the two of them kind of had a moment, and they seemed like they were okay. But I guess to answer your question directly, when it happened, it was shocking for people that haven't seen cars wreck. I could tell by the way he hit that he was going to be okay, and I just wanted to make sure that he was, like, his psyche was all right and that his family was okay, because that's the main thing. After you crash, it's traumatic for people to see that. So I just wanted to make sure on set and on that day that people weren't traumatized by seeing something like that happen.
Gotcha. Were there what was your favorite race on Fastest Car? Favorite showdown? You guys had what, 10 episodes each season?
Yeah, 8 episodes each season. 8 the first season, and then 7 the second season, with the final episode being the multi-car race, the 6 or 7 wide race. Probably my favorite. That's a good question.
It's a lot of great backstories too. You guys had some interesting guests, man.
We did, yeah, we really did. Well, here's the funny thing. I didn't really see that many actual races, because I would start the people off and then I would sprint out of the way. Yeah. And then by the time I turned around, they were because they would go. Like, I would still be sprinting off, so they would go. The reason I did that is because I don't know if you recall in Team Salamone, Brian Salamone.
Yeah, Brian Rambo.
Yeah, well, he almost ran me down. So.
Whoa, I didn't know. Oh,
well,
man.
Yeah. So this is season 1, when he raced. He lost to the Camaro, the beige Camaro, not beige Camaro. No, he who did he lose to? He didn't make it to the finals.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was trying to adjust his launch control, and he missed. Yep. Yeah, and he missed the timing on he missed the timing, or he was waiting for the launch control, and he misinterpreted how much time it would take from red to green, because the light would be red and then we'd make it green. And we did that because people were, racers were trying to, plug in my phone. They were trying to time the lights, because, so many of them were drag racers. So we just went red, green. Well, he just misinterpreted, got the timing wrong, and had the car in launch control mode, and took his foot off the brake to try to reset it, and the car just took off. So I was pointing to the thing, and I used to run backwards. I used to run backwards to get out of the way, and I just see him go. And then the other car that was with the guys with the Camaro, the burgundy Camaro, they took after him too, because he was like, well, if he goes, I'm going. So they both take off running, and my back's turned to him. So I guess that was the most memorable race, because I almost got killed. So
right, yeah, that could have went so. Man. That's crazy. So you got a signature on the show, the crazy socks.
Yes.
You got the crazy socks. How did that come up about? Was that always your thing, or did you just do that for the show to stand out, to give it your signature?
Yeah, I've always kind of liked to sort of do my own spin on things, I guess. Like, like masks, I like wearing these gaiters just because we got to wear masks now. So with the show, it was kind of like, yeah, I just wanted to have some fun with it. I figured I'd get crazy socks. I mean, I had always worn kind of interesting socks, and then I thought it'd be fun. I just thought it'd be a fun gimmick on the show, and then people kind of picked up on it, and they started to get big. One for the final episode of season 2. I don't know if you noticed, but I got my face on the socks, so that's my face.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
Yeah.
Screenshot that one.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So, we heard a little bit about your backstory. We know that you moved from East Coast to West Coast, but you was into cars before you moved to West Coast.
Yes.
Was there any big difference between the car culture of East Coast to West Coast? Could you share a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. So huge difference. Not knocking the East Coast car culture, because all car culture is cool. Having said that, it's just the West Coast. A lot of the innovation in road racing and hot rodding that comes from the West Coast for whatever reasons. I think it might be some of the military, because there are a lot of military bases out here. But like a lot of this was back. I moved out here back in the '90s. So back then it was a lot of sport compact car culture, and that was huge here. So people taking Japanese cars and modifying them in various ways. Well, a lot of that was based out here. Drifting in the United States got its foothold out here in California. So the car culture is interesting because there's a lot of originators out here. Road racing, which I love, kind of got it didn't get its start here, but a lot of the development of road racing as a discipline came from out here. You got the world-class tracks, Laguna Seca, Sonoma Raceway. Southern California, you had Riverside, which no longer exists, but then you have Willow Springs. So just a lot of contributions to the global car culture starts from California. And that's the biggest difference, kind of being out somewhere where you see it originate. Like in Baltimore, if somebody's like, I moved from the West Coast to the East Coast, what's different? Well, seafood and like the culture in Baltimore, that sort of thing. So you see, like that's where that originated. A lot of the prominent seafood dishes that we think of originated in Baltimore. Same thing with cars. A lot of the stuff that we see on cars, a lot of the stuff that the manufacturers do is in many ways based on the car trends that come out of California.
Got it. So just to switch gears a little bit, still related to cars, but we heard your story of how you started from the bottom, in Baltimore with your first car, Eclipse, and worked your way up, moved to the West Coast, become an instructor, get on Netflix fastest car, which is amazing accomplishment.
Thank you.
To our viewers and our audience that's listening, that's looking to achieve that next goal in life, or to get that Porsche, or get that supercar, or maybe they want to become an instructor, get into motorsports, and race at a high level, or go to be in the Le Mans. What can you tell them? Maybe as far as tips, knowledge, any gems that you have to share to our audience about chasing your dreams and chasing your goals to make it happen.
Oh, definitely. Well, the first is recognize that the goal, whatever dream or goal you have, is valid and you should go after it. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. People are like, well, I want to do this, but I think I should do something else. No, if you love it, do it. Second, I'd invite anybody who has any questions about racing to hit me up. I'm real easy to find on social. I'm T Marc Jones. So I'd be happy to answer any direct questions. But really, it's just go out and so a couple of things. Are you asking about someone who wants to, say, get their dream car? Or are you asking about someone who wants to get into racing, or both?
I mean, either one. I mean, because it transcends, no matter what kind of car or what kind of goal you're trying to get. But, as far as like things that you did in your life that, that you wanted to manifest and get to that next level, I'm sure it can transcend to, some of the audience that's watching.
Okay. Well, yeah, no. So with the Porsche, I wanted to get a Porsche, and I wanted to have it when I was a relatively young man. So, I looked at careers that would make that available to me. So, as a profession, I'm a sales director for a software company. That's what I do as my day job, or one of the things I do. So I would say first and foremost, if you want something, let's say, you want the latest, you want to get a Ferrari, for example, I'm just picking that, then find those things that would allow you to get that and work towards that. So if you say, I want to have a Ferrari, first determine what you want within that, because that means a lot of things. You want a brand new Ferrari? Do you want a vintage Ferrari? What do you want to use it for? That sort of thing. And then once you determine what you want and how you want to use it, then determine what can help you get to that level, or what can make it so that you can have that sort of thing. So if it's a certain type of work, or if you need to learn a certain skill, or you need to apply yourself in a certain new way to make that happen, then do it. And then sort of just trust the process. People say that, but it's like, if you love to do something, you will find yourself gravitating towards it, and opportunities will open up, because you are operating within, it's like you're operating in a flow state. So you're operating from a place of enthusiasm and enjoyment, and you will attract that sort of thing. It's just by virtue of the fact of who you are and what you're doing in that time. So that's what I would say. And then do everything you can to become part of, just immerse yourself in that culture. A lot of times there's a lot of, I would go, for example, I said I love Porsches. When I was a young person, like in college, I would go to the dealership and say, hey, I'm not ready to buy yet. Do you mind if I look around? And people, they're like, oh no, go right ahead, because one day you might be a customer. So go into a Ferrari dealership, for example, and say, hey, today, no, I'm not. Don't waste people's time. Don't go and sit down and start talking numbers if you're not ready. But there's nothing wrong with that. You can go in. I'll be back. But hey, I love Ferrari. I'm going to get one day. I'd love to just look at the cars. Go to car museums. Now there's a lot more car shows. There's cars and coffee and caffeine and octane and all sorts of things like that. You can join chat groups. Like there's a lot for Porsche, for example, but there are those for Ferrari and every other make and mark that you can think of. Join those kinds of groups to learn more and more about the cars. If you want to get, I'd say just immerse yourself in it. So that's on kind of the dream car thing. And then for those people who say, you know what, I think driving a car on track would be great, but what kind of car should I get? Well, the car that you have right now should be suitable for it, as long as it's got to be properly maintained. That's the main thing. And you can't take a lifted truck or a lifted vehicle out to. You can't take any kind of lifted vehicle out on track. So you could, like, if you had a Jeep that you put a 3-inch lift on, it's no longer suitable or safe to take out on a racetrack, unfortunately. Yeah. So unless you did it in such a way, but then that I'm getting too far afield, so I just leave it at that. But a lot of people ask me, how do I get involved? Well, you can start with the car that you have, because remember, in Group 1, you're just learning, and the speeds are probably going to be what you encounter on the road anyway. So you're not going to be going any faster than you've driven the car before. It's just you'll be out on the racetrack. But again, your car, first and foremost, has to be properly maintained. Like if it's leaking oil or it's making noises, or you got, your tires aren't straight. You have to make sure that's taken care of. But aside from that, that's how you get started. Just National Auto Sport Association, or if you just do HPDE, High Performance Driving Events, Driver Education, HPDE. In your area, you can find other groups that do stuff like that, because it's becoming a lot more popular now. People taking their regular cars out on track. And then once you do that, you can determine, hey, is this something I want to do? And if it is, you can say, well, I can keep taking this car to its lot, to keep using the car that I have, or I can look at getting a different kind of car, and then what kind of car is that? And then that puts you back into well, I want a Ferrari. Okay, well, we already talked about that. So they kind of, they're sort of, they can be considered or looked at as two sides of the same coin, so to speak.
Cool.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna just shout out a few more of the people that tuned in. Zero, No Limit Eddie, No Limit Shay, and I think Junie was in and out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Outside of cars, what kind of hobbies are you into?
Well, I like biking. Big. It's interesting. I've always liked bicycling. Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, bicycling. Yeah, one with the pedals. I always liked biking too as a kid. And it's kind of funny. I bought a few years back. I bought a hybrid bike. And I got it for urban riding. So I got it where I could ride it on the street. It has a little suspension fork in the front to keep, because in case I have to ride over curbs or construction or what have you. I just wanted a little bit beefier frame. And now I'm kind of getting into trail riding. So it's kind of cool taking that bike and sort of having it as a dual purpose type thing. So there's some trails up in a place called Novato, California. So I'm kind of getting big into bike, and I think I may get another bike and then start doing cross country races.
Well, that'd be dope.
Yeah. Because my thing is, I like if I get something, I like seeing if I'm good at it, and really the only thing to see if you're any good at anything is to do it in competition. So right now I'm kind of learning, getting my trail chops, and then whenever I get a new bike, I think I'll get a cross country race bike and then start doing cross country races.
Question: are you on YouTube? You got a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel. It's T Marc Jones. Yeah, it's T Marc Jones and Finesse Motorsports. I had put some old on-track activities there from when I was running the Mazda Speed 6, and I haven't. I'm sort of in between projects, so I hadn't really put up much content lately. I'm starting to get back into it, but yeah, it's T Marc. It's on YouTube. T Marc Jones and Finesse Motorsports. That's the motorsports brand. And if you go on there now, there's a bunch of track driving videos, mostly the Mazda Speed 6. I haven't done anything yet with the Porsche yet, the 718 yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm gonna go on there and definitely check them out and subscribe and check out and wait for your new uploads. We do have a couple questions.
Okay.
See, Vapor said, I need that Porsche. Yeah, he loves that Porsche. Zero No Limit Eddie said, what part of California are you in?
Yeah, a place called Redwood City. So I'm in the Northern California, in the Bay Area. And the city is Redwood City.
All right. Black Box 888. Yes, we're going to upload this video once it is done to YouTube. And it is going to be on our Instagram page, so that you can link back at it. I need to link with you, T Marc in LA. Yep. Make sure you do that. What's the fastest you driven in life? Top speed, wavy, Wednesday.
160.
160. Yeah, that's pretty fast. What other questions we have? How is the car scene in the Bay Area? I'm not sure how far away you are in the Bay Area, if you know about the car scene, but if so, you can enlighten us.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm in the Bay Area.
You are in the Bay Area, okay.
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area. Yeah, no, the car scene is pretty amazing out here. There's everything that you can think of. A lot of road racing. Actually, in Oakland, there's a lot of sideshows. Where people just go out and take their cars and do sideshows in the street. So that's like not so much now because of the pandemic, but I mean, before then, that was kind of a cool thing. It's a very varied car culture, you know, and everybody's supported. There's a lot of car shows here. And again, for me, you know, there's so much racing heritage here with the 2 racetracks. So there's that piece. But, you know, we have the Pebble Beach Concourse, which I highly recommend. And that's if you love old vintage cars. So vintage, you know, Bentleys, vintage Rolls Royces, vintage Hispano Suizas, and, you know, Packards and all sorts of stuff like that. I'd highly recommend that. But yeah, so the culture here is cool. I mean, it's very, there's something for everybody out here, for sure.
Yeah, I just met a gentleman in person, roughly about maybe a week ago, last weekend. I knew him from Facebook, but you know, I seen him in person. It was like his face looks familiar. He's actually the guy who coordinates setting up the cars over at the what's the name of that event you just mentioned?
The Pebble Beach Concourse.
Yes, he's actually the coordinator that moves the cars around, keeps it nice, and he got a huge detailing company. And you know, they seen how good he was, and Lamborghini, Bentley, and all the big names started to reach out to him. So now he travels everywhere they go. He travels with them to keep the cars intact. Yep.
Very cool.
All right, so we're running out of time, but I do have one last question for you.
Okay.
What is next for T Marc Jones? What's next for you? If you can give us, I know you might don't want to give us your whole plan, but if you can just drop us a little bit.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Just, you know, so the current state of the world is kind of, you know, cramped everybody's style. So,
right.
So I'm in the process. I'm looking for new opportunities. I do want to get back into racing. Actually, I'll probably get into time trialing. I had done that with the Mazda. And I'll probably get into that with the Porsche in 2021. I don't think I'm gonna do much for the remainder of this year. And then I'm looking for some more sponsorship, some more brand ambassadorship. I had been a brand ambassador with Shell for about 3 years, and then just as relationships go, that relationship ended. So I'm looking for new opportunities, and really just trying to keep out there. You know, it's. You know, people say, "Oh, wow, you did the Netflix thing. That was great." I'm like, "Yeah, it was overnight success after 25 years." So, you know,
hard work pays off, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and for me, so it's a lifestyle. You know, that you asked earlier. You know, how people can achieve the things. We'll see it as a lifestyle. So, whatever it is that you want, just see that as a lifestyle, and then begin to live your life according to that lifestyle. So for me, motorsports is a lifestyle. So, you know, what could I do next? I'd like to get into some go-kart racing. I told you about the mountain bike racing. I think that'll be good because I think that'll help. It's funny because doing that, you know, because I'm learning how to read trails and stuff like that. And, you know, the bike that I have, I'm not like, so if you do mountain bike racing, I'm not the one jumping off cliffs and doing backflips in the air. I just have no interest in doing that. So that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing cross-country trail riding where it's like, okay, it's a relatively flat trail, but it's in the woods and it's 10 miles. That's what I like doing. So reading the trail is a lot like driving a car on track. You got to pick your line. You got to
see that correlation there. Okay.
Yeah, direct correlation. So it's kind of interesting. I talked about, you know, you don't know something until you teach it. So now I'm applying what I know from road racing to trail riding, which is pretty interesting. So you asked, you know, what's next? That's what's next. I think I'm gonna have a racing across the. I know it's not car related, but you know, it'll help with the cars. And then, you know, I'll continue to instruct and run time trial with NASA moving forward. So, and then, yeah, just invite everybody. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about, or you want to get into motorsports, or you want to ask about Porsche or anything, hit me up, and I'll be happy to help. I'm on all the channels: Twitter, T Marc Jones; Instagram, T Marc Jones; YouTube, T Marc Jones; Facebook, T Marc Jones. So I'm not hard to find.
Cool. And there you have it, guys. T Marc Jones. Make sure y'all follow him on Instagram as well as YouTube. Man, if you got a GoPro, stick a GoPro in your helmet next time you go trail bike riding. I would love to see how you doing with those trails, man. That sounds pretty interesting.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. I actually have the chest thing, so I'll throw that chest thing on there. Yeah.
Dope. Dope.
Yeah, no,
Dope.
a good dude. Just on that, on closing, there's a good dude to check out. He does a lot of cool stuff. His name is Matty Johnson. He's got a YouTube channel. He's out in Boulder, and he does a similar thing. He's riding a straight up mountain bike, but he's cool brother, just to kind of get some perspective on trail riding. So he's kind of inspiring me to get out there. So I think I'm, and then you inspire me too. So I'm gonna put the chest thing on, and you can ride with me up the hill.
Yeah. Well, again, T Marc Jones, it's been a pleasure. Me as well as E-Vapors, we would like to thank you for accepting that invite, coming on here on Car Talk TV. It's definitely been a blessing talking with you for the past 60 minutes. Unfortunately, we couldn't talk more, but I know we're going to get you back on again and get finished with where you left off with your stories. Again, you guys follow him, T Marc Jones, on Instagram, as well as check him out on YouTube. If you haven't seen Fastest Car already, it's on Netflix. They got 2 series, and you can kind of see, his involvement in there. But thanks for tuning in, guys. T Marc, when you come to Maryland, DC, Virginia, hit me up. When you go to North Carolina, Raleigh area, Durham area, hit up E-Vapors. And when we come out LA, we definitely going to hit you up as well.
Yeah, actually, Bay Area. Well, LA too, but I'd have to fly down there. Bay Area, yeah. So San Francisco, Bay Area, yeah.
Okay, so you're a little further down. Gotcha.
Yeah, LA's like a little further down. That's Southern California. But yeah, no, hit me up for sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of Sunday.
All right, you too. All right, take care.
Cool. See you later, guys. Until next time.
Peace.